National Public Radio just suspended the 25-year veteran editor who blew the whistle on the radio network's far-left bias. He wrote a long piece, we told you about it last week, about how NPR would turn a blind eye to stories like the COVID lab leak theory, the Hunter Biden laptop story, and focus its efforts solely to damage or topple Donald Trump. The man who wrote it, with some personal risk, you could certainly say, was Uri Berliner, worked here in D.C. He talked to Cuomo before he got suspended.
We were kind of nerdy and really like to dig into things and understand the complexity of things. That I think that's evolved over the years into a much narrower kind of niche thinking, a group think that's really clustered around a very selective progressive views that they don't allow enough air.
NewsNation contributor, Mediaite founding editor Colby Hall is with us now. You know, I had a boss who once said that bias wasn't having an opinion, bias is excluding opinions, and I guess that's sort of what NPR has done twice now, right? They exclude the opinions of half of America, which is what Berliner laid out, and then they punish someone who worked there who offered a dissenting opinion.
Yeah, I think NPR made a big mistake here, and not for obvious reasons. Look, anyone that's paid attention to NPR over the last 10 years could tell that it's had a more doctrinaire progressive bent. I kind of stopped listening to it as a result, and I don't know the details of Uri Berliner's contract and what he can say and do, but one of NPR's sort of programming mission is one of tolerance and acceptance, right? They lament the divided nature of the political world that we're in, very often from a progressive point of view. The opportunity here was to not punish Uri Berliner for ostensibly whistleblowing, but, saying, okay, great, we heard that, and we accept different points of view, and we're going to have a conversation about this. That would be the most NPR thing to do. And instead, they were angry, and they looked to sort of like punish him, which, almost already
proved his point, right?
Right.
Yeah,
right.
So it proves a point. I think about the free speech issue, right? And that sort of the idea of free speech is so important in a liberal democracy, and so important to protecting democracy as people being able to think about things. The NPR CEO, what is that deranged racist psychopath ranting about today? I truly don't understand one of her tweets. I mean, sure, looting is counterproductive. This is back in 2020. But it's hard to be mad about protests not prioritizing the private property of a system of oppression founded on treating people's ancestors as private property. On and on and on and on. And she's the CEO. Okay, so is it, and you make a good point about contracts going back and forth, and there's the legal side of things, and then there is the sort of moral and fair side of things. Is it fair to say free speech applies to the left when applied by the left, but it does not apply to the right, be it Donald Trump, who is often turned off on CNN and MSNBC, is often not covered completely unfairly on NPR?
Well, I think that you make a great point, and absolutely that's the case. I mean, I used to make fun of some of my super liberal friends here in Brownstone, Brooklyn, and they were claimed to be so open-minded, but they were so open-minded that they were closed-minded about it, in that they would shut off any open conversation. And I think Uri Berliner's point is that there's a lack of curiosity and openness to sort of, not in social anthropology about Trump fans, but looking at the broader picture instead of trying to advocate and tell its listeners what they should be thinking, which is precisely what their mission had been since Rodney King. And I think Uri Berliner was wise to point out. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, it's advocacy journalism. And in many ways, NPR is sort of appealing to the same extreme side that we lament Fox News or MSNBC do. It's become advocacy, and the body politic is hurt for that.
National Progressive Radio, maybe, just to be fair in terms of a name.
Right now,
all right, yeah. Colby, good to see you. Thank you.
Thanks, Leland.
Thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.